If you're in a place where it is comfortable and appropriate for you to do so, go ahead and close your eyes and take a few slow, long, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, you feel more light and peace entering the body and the mind. With every exhale, you let go of tension in your body, along with anything else that you do not want. Inhaling peace and light, and letting go with every exhale, feeling like gravity is just taking everything away that you do not want. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. Inside the center of this circle, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. This light is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it burns away everything that is not like itself, leaving us pure and safe, joyous and happy. Into this sacred space, we invite the presence of our Creator. To many of us here, that Creator reveals themselves as a God and Goddess, a mother and father. We also invite into this sacred space the presence of our angels, our teachers, and our guides. We dedicate the time that we now spend together to each other and to them. We ask that we be guided and led as we walk upon the way, so that we can become happier, more loving, more joyous, more prosperous, more healthy, and more peaceful people. Thank you very much, and if it's appropriate for you to do so, you can join me in out loud saying, "Blessed be." If you have read my booklet on Psalm Magic, how to work Psalm Magic, you may already know about the Psalmic Initiatory Path, and you may already be walking the Psalmic Initiatory Path. And I've done at least one or two other lectures that goes into how the Psalmic Initiatory Path works, so we won't spend too much time on that. But just to recap, basically, you can take the book of Psalms as it appears in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, and you can just take it and work psalm magic on each and every psalm in that book. And when you get all 150 of those psalms finished, that is considered your first degree in the Psalmic Initiatory Path. And then you can do that again, and you get a second degree. And you can do that again, and you get a third degree. And there's different guidelines and things that we go into, and you can listen to the other lecture on Psalmic initiation to get all the details about that. But the Psalmic Initiatory Path is a very legitimate path of magical initiation. And it's a wonderful thing for everybody, whether or not you're already involved in initiations with other kinds of systems or groups, or whether you don't have any access or desire to follow an initiatory path outside of the Psalmic Initiatory Path. The great thing about the Psalms is that they are available to everybody. So nobody owns the Psalms, no matter what anybody says, and boy, do people get very possessive about them, and they get very angry sometimes if they hear that we're doing things that they don't agree with. But they can do that, and they still don't have any say. They don't own the Psalms. And the Psalmic Initiatory Path is open to everybody of any faith or no faith. And it's really between you and infinite intelligence. And on one hand, you can get very practical results with Psalms. You can say, I need a specific amount of money for a bill. You take it to the Psalm and poof, you get your need met. You can take relationship problems to the Psalms. You can take the need for a desire for a relationship to the Psalms. You can take health problems to the Psalms. You can take protection to the Psalms. You can curse people with the Psalms. You can protect from curses with the Psalms. You can reverse curses with the Psalms. Any kind of magical operation that you can think of, you can do with the Psalms. Now, one thing that the Psalmic Initiatory Path teaches us, and you'll learn it on your own just by being on the path, eventually, but you can shortcut some of that by just listening right now. One of the things you will learn from the Psalmic initiatory path is that our first goal in any magical operation is peace. Now, that is a very Pauline arts-oriented understanding of the Psalms and of magic. So you don't need to be involved in the Pauline arts to work psalm magic, and you don't need to work psalm magic in order to be involved in the Pauline arts necessarily, but those two things really do go hand in hand very, very well. And the idea that peace is your first goal is the exact same concept in the New Testament when that character called Jesus says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you." So they were asking, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Practical concerns. And Jesus said, well, go for the kingdom of heaven first. Well, the kingdom of heaven is nothing more than your peace of mind. I know that we want it to be a lot more mystical and ooey-ooey, but it's really only that. But if you consider what only that means, it is the most mystical thing that could possibly be. Because if you find true peace of mind, then you've found God. You've found the Godhead. You've found heaven. You have ascended. You have found the secrets of all the universe, and the mysteries of every magical system falls right into place for you. There is no higher truth than your peace of mind. So it's easy for the ego to discount that and say, oh, so the kingdom of heaven is no big deal. It just means your peace of mind. Yes, it means your peace of mind, and it is a big deal. It is a big deal. So seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else is going to come to you. Because why? Because that's Magic 101A. When you have your peace of mind taken care of, and that's your first goal, it doesn't mean that you can't have other goals. It doesn't say, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and then don't want anything. It says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all of these other things are going to come to you. Why? Because it's magic. Because you have set yourself up on a particular current, a particular vibration. And that vibration then magnetizes to you everything that you desire or require. And that doesn't even mean that you don't do other spells. It doesn't mean that you don't have other goals. But if you start with peace, if you start with the kingdom of heaven, if you start with peace as your first goal, then you know that not only are you safe, but you will be successful. You will be happy. You will get what you want. That's the mystery of the Psalms and the initiatory path, but it's the same mystery in any initiatory path. Not just this one. In any true initiatory path, if your goal ultimately isn't your peace of mind, then it's not really an initiation, is it? What do you want to be initiated into if it's not the kingdom of heaven? If it's not your true self? If it's not the source of all your life? And that exists in peace. It must exist in peace. There are a couple of interesting things in the initiatory path that we have not yet really discussed, and I'm going to be writing a booklet on the initiatory path, and I'll go into this in writing, but I just wanted to go over them here. And one of those is that there are a couple of collections of psalms that are very oriented toward initiation. The first is a collection of 6 psalms called the Golden Psalms. And the Golden Psalms are Psalm number 16 and then Psalms 56 through 60. And the Golden Psalms are what we would consider Psalms of Alchemy. Psalms of Alchemy. Now, if you have ever studied actual alchemy, you understand what a process it is. Because what the ancient alchemists were all about were taking base substances, they were metals oftentimes, but they're base substances and transforming them. So they would be taking a base metal and then transforming it into gold. They wanted to turn it into gold. On a real practical level, they were probably learning how to create alloys. There is some legend that there were some alchemists that found a way to make pure gold out of those metals. But most of those alchemists, at least the ones that were wise, understood that that was all allegorical, ultimately, to taking base level humanity and turning it into gold, turning it into spiritual gold. And that was done by what? Distillation, basically. You can, there's many different forms of distillation that they practiced, but basically what that was a purification. You would take something and you would purify it enough and enough and enough, and that eventually its leaning was, its tendency was always toward gold, always toward the pure, because that was its primary substance to begin with. So if you think about that, you were created perfect. You were created gold, if you will. And then we forgot, we started thinking other things outside of the idea of perfection, and those ideas then had forms that were created out of that, because that's how the mind works. The mind is creative, and the mind creates form. Form follows thought. And so all thought is powerful, and all thought will create form at some point or another, on some level or another. And therefore, if we are thinking thoughts that are not based on truth, that are not based on the truth of how we were created, which is that spiritual gold, then we start creating things that are not spiritual gold. And so then what do we have to do? When we want to get back to the gold, we have to purify from our minds and our environments everything that is not of that original gold. And that's what alchemy is. So we're not really transforming something that was created base into something that we're creating. What we're doing in reality with alchemy is we're taking stuff that we have basically destroyed, and we are redeeming it. We are purifying it. We are distilling it so that we get back to its essence. And that essence is what was created for us at our creation. So the Golden Psalms are a means by which you can work that alchemy. If you think in terms of alchemy as being part of your initiation, you could work those 6 psalms to just work on your own remembrance of who you are as a soul, your own remembrance of who you are as gold versus the base metal. But you can also work those psalms on specifics in your life. You know, it doesn't always have to be real lofty ideas. It can be, you know, instead of saying, okay, I'm broke, I need money. Instead of thinking I'm sick, I need health. Instead of thinking I'm having a fight, I need resolution. You could think in terms of, okay, I've got the gold of my finances here, stuck inside of all this dross that I've somehow created throughout my life or many lives. And so what I want to do is distill what my financial situation is right now. I want to distill that so that the gold can be what is redeemed out of that, and we can let go of all the rest. And you don't have to work them in order, but it's kind of nice to just work them right in order on that. You can take 6 days, however many times you want to go through it, and just really work through the alchemical process of transforming that base metal into gold in whatever it happens to be. And again, those are Psalms number 16, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60. The Psalms of Gold, or the Golden Psalms. Michtam, they're called in Hebrew. Now, you're going to find all kinds of opinions on what Michtam means and what those Golden Psalms are. And it's always fine to get educated on other people's perspectives. But from the Psalmic initiatory perspective, it's exactly what we're describing today, and that is alchemy. Actual alchemy. Now, you can study alchemy. You can study learning how to do the laboratory exercises. You can do all of that, and that's fine. But you don't have to. You can use the Golden Psalms as your alchemy, as your laboratory. And you do it the same way we do any other kind of psalm magic. You take the psalm, you read it all the way out loud once without stopping as your incantation, and then you go through and you dig and search and mine for each of those hidden occult meanings. And as you're doing that, you are actually distilling whatever this thing that you brought to the psalm is. You're distilling it and you're redeeming the gold from it. And the other collection that's very important, it's a very long collection. It's a 15 psalm collection. And they're commonly called the Psalms of Ascent or the Psalms of Degrees. It's another collection which you're going to find a lot of opinions about what it means, and you're going to see a lot of disagreement about what it means. But for a psalmic initiatory traveler, the Psalms of Ascent are psalms of initiation. They are truly psalms of initiation. Now, the whole book is are psalms of initiation when we're working the path, but these are specific to us. They are probably the only psalms in the book of Psalms, the canonical book of Psalms, that's exactly in the same order that they were when they first discovered them, when they were first introduced into the book of Psalms. They probably have less of the changing and rewriting done than the other psalms. They're somewhat intact from their ancient prehistoric origins. They've been stepped on quite a lot, but not quite as much as some of the other psalms. Now, the Psalms of Ascent are very important. They deal, a lot of people say, with pilgrimage. But remember, in magic, we don't think religiously. We're not thinking about a religious pilgrimage. A pilgrimage in magic is an initiation. It's a journey that you take in order to discover yourself, in order to discover parts of yourself that you didn't know, in order to find hidden truth and hidden wisdom. It's path working is another way of calling a pilgrimage. You're working the paths on between the Sephirot on the tree of life. But you can do that whether or not you understand the tree of life or Kabbalah. You can work the paths. This is a 15-degree little mini initiatory system here. All the psalms in this collection are fairly brief. They're not real long psalms, and some of them are super short. Some of them are extremely short. They all tend to be somewhat hopeful, and many of them are extremely joyous and happy. And that gives you a clue right there as to the nature of ascent. The nature of ascent is that you uplift yourself and then you raise your vibrations. So you can think of the Psalms of Ascent, or what I call the Ascension Psalms. You can think of the Ascension Psalms as being a method by which you raise your vibrations. You raise your vibrations. You can use the entire collection of Ascension Psalms for very practical purposes. Anytime you need to be raised up or lifted up in any sense whatsoever, that can be as practical as getting a better position or a better job, raising your finances. It could be raising the level of communication in a relationship. Anything that you need to raise the vibrations of, it can be very, very practical. And again, you work these the same exact way as you would work any other psalm. You take the psalm in question, you read it all the way through once without stopping out loud as an incantation. And then you go back through that psalm and you contemplate, search, dig for the hidden occult meanings and apply what you find to whatever you brought to the psalm. So these are similar to the alchemical psalms, except for these are more about raising the vibration, lifting up, ascending higher and higher and higher, having a higher understanding of things. And you can ask yourself what needs to be raised, what needs to be lifted, what needs to be ascended. And then you can bring whatever that is to this collection. Now, I recommend, again, one psalm per day, even if it's a tiny little itty-bitty psalm, and take a whole 15 days and work that process of the Ascension Psalms on something specific. Now, if you wanted to just say, I'm just doing this as an initiatory exercise, I don't have anything that I need, you could do that. But it's so much easier if you have an object of your ascension that you can focus on. It's so, I think, so much better to actually have something that you're working on that needs to be lifted, that needs to be or ascended. You know, there's something that needs to have the vibrations lifted in. And that way you can keep your focus and you can keep anchored. And you can also prove to yourself that this stuff works because you're going to see a change in that thing, in that situation, in whatever that topic is that you bring right to the psalm. And that way it's not just sort of theory that you're dealing with, or it doesn't just make you feel good for a minute, but you say, wow, see, this is permanently changed. This is really effective magic that I'm working here. So the Psalms of Ascension. Now, some people that are working Ascension magic, that are really trying to be ascended masters, this is another collection that you can work over and over and over again to find that, and to really help to optimize your goal of ascension. And I know that that's a big thing for a lot of people. They're working on ascension magic. And so this you could use just for that and work this particular collection as a whole for that. Now, again, if you're doing the Psalmic Initiatory Path, we work with that canonical book of Psalms, 150 of them, and we go through all 150 in order to raise for 1 degree. So even within that, you can when you're doing that, you can take these Psalms, these collections of Psalms, and work them as collections, and then check them off on your list to make sure that you remember that you've already worked them. And you can work this, you don't have to, if you're doing the Psalmic Initiatory Path, you don't have to avoid repeating Psalms when you're working that. So if you want to work a collection again and again and again and again, you can still do that while you're on the initiatory path. You can repeat Psalms. You can take as long as you want to get through the whole 150. It's fine. You can repeat. Something else real quickly about the Psalmic Initiatory Path that we were talking about, I think on Discord it came up. One thing that many of us that travel this path, or at least have it as part of our working, is that you notice that when you're working on the Psalmic Initiatory Path, you don't have to worry so much as, did I get the right psalm? Am I working the right psalm? Because you know that you're going to get through the whole book anyway. So you're working the whole book. So you're always in that current. That current of magic is very powerful in your life. And therefore, you can just ask for what you need as you go. You happen to be working on Psalm 1 today? Well, whatever you need, whether it's part of the suggested uses or not, just whatever you need, you're going to bring it to the Psalm because you know you're working on the whole book. So you don't have to worry about, do I have the right Psalm for the right thing? Because you're working that initiatory path and you're going to get through the whole book anyway. So just do what you're on, just work what you're on, and whatever you need, just bring it to the Psalm, right? You can do it that way as well. When you're not on the Psalmic Initiatory Path, it's a lot more advantageous to try to find a psalm that at least speaks to your need. You're going to get there faster. But ultimately, any psalm can be used for any purpose. Ultimately, that's true. You'll just get there faster if you're finding a psalm that at least speaks to your need. But like I say, if you're on the path of initiation in the Psalms, you're going through all of them. So don't worry so much about that. Just bring whatever you need to the psalm and go for it. Just go ahead with it. In the Psalmic Initiatory Path, 2 of those collections that we haven't really discussed before, which are of paramount importance to you, are going to be the Golden Psalms, or the Alchemical Psalms we sometimes call them. And those are Psalms 16, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60. And then the Ascension Psalms, which are Psalms number 120 through 134. Work with those collections and see what you think. See if you don't find that you are working your magic on a different level and with different kinds of results than you were before. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.